Hello, I'm Ankita Khare.
Hi, I'm Shivang Mehta.
In 1927, when the first talking cinema reached the theatres, many film critics opined that this is an end to art cinema and that sound won't stay for long. But these objections were just temporary.
Today, sound is one of the most critical elements in any film. Now let's have a look at the clip from this famous film, The City of God.
Se correr o bicho pega, se ficar o bicho come.
Bora, filé. Vai, filé. Escolhe um aí, mata aí. Os dois, filé. Bora, mata logo, amigo. Bora, filé. Não tô o dia inteiro não, meu irmão. Bora, amigo. Vai, filé. Escolhe logo, mata um cara aí, brother. Bora, filé. Não tem o dia inteiro não. Bora, filé. Não tem o dia inteiro não, meu irmão.
In today's session, we are going to discuss about this important element of cinema, the sound.
Akira Kurosawa, the famous filmmaker who made classics like The Seventh Samurai and Rashomon, once told that cinematic sound is something which doesn't add to but multiplies 2 or 3 times the effect of an image.
Have a small observation of your environment. Your primary information would be through your sight. Sound often plays a background to our visual attention. The same happens in cinema too.
When we speak of watching a cinema or being movie buffs, we are inclined to think that sound simply adds to the real basis of cinema, that is, the moving images.
However, if you have a close look at the films that have created a strong impression in your mind, you will realize that all these films had a strong audio track.
What was that?
That's a Tyrannosaurus.
I don't think so. It sounds bigger.
Follow me! Wait, he's coming back! Head for the tree!
This is the real power of sound. It can achieve very strong effects and yet remain unnoticeable. In today's class, we will discuss brief history of the use of sound in cinema, power and use of sound, components of sound, relation of sound and image, through sound, how to create off-screen and on-screen space, usage of sound in Indian cinema as well as world classics.
Sound is separate from images, and that is why it is possible to experiment and manipulate with sound. This makes sound flexible and wide-ranging as any other film technique.
To study sound, we must learn to listen to films. So today's class will focus more on listening than viewing.
Okay, let's go. Stand by. Taking. Roll camera. And action. Cut.
If we start a session from the history of world cinema, we can say that man realized the importance of sound and moving visuals to tell a story.
The period stretching from the early days of cinema in the mid-1890s to 1930 has come to be known as the silent era. Actually, there was never a silent period. All the movies prior to 1927 were accompanied by some...
It was Edison who initially conceived of a motion picture as an illustration to go along with his cylindrical phonograph, so that those people who purchased the sound machines could also watch something while they were listening to it. W.K.L. Dixon, Edison's talented assistant, brought together sound with the image prior to the first Lumiere shows. In large theatres in the cities, full orchestras provided the background for the visuals.
For the classic silent film, Birth of a Nation, when the film was screened, men fired cap pistols from the backstage in order to stimulate the gunfires in the war sequences.
This D.W. Griffith film, which was shot in 1915, had its own background score which accompanied the film.
Another milestone in the history of sound in cinema was when Warner Brothers added sound to a silent feature called Don Juan in 1926.
The Vitaphone system, as it was called that time, used disc recording that was mechanically synchronized with the projector.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am privileged to say a few words to you in this most modern and novel manner. Privileged because it's the first living Vitaphone announcement ever made announcing the coming of one of the year's outstanding pictures. What is the picture? Oh, well, of course. You've guessed that I'm referring to Warner Brothers' supreme triumph, Al Jolson in The Jazz Singer.
But a revolutionary change in the history of sound in cinema came on October 6, 1927, when The Jazz Singer, the feature film with synchronized speech and music, was released.
The Warner film had 6 songs, including the theme song called Mammy.
The first talking film had dialogues of something around 305 words. But it was clearly these dialogues than the songs which made the audience queue up around the Warner Theatre.
To make a talkie film was not an easy task at that time. The need to record the dialogues on the set affected the mobility of the camera. The camera was restricted to one position and it had to be enclosed in soundproof booths so as to ensure that the microphones don't record the motor sound. The actors couldn't move far away from the microphone and editing was restricted to minimal functions. The camera was housed in a soundproof blimp, thus permitting the camera to move in and out of the scene silently.
When the movie suddenly started to speak, one of the negative aftermaths was the overflow of dialogues. The images tended merely to illustrate the soundtracks. Many theories evolved during this period. For the theorists of the silent film era, the essence of cinema was in the image. In their perception, the addition of sound, especially dialogues, threatened the hegemony of visuals that existed for more than 30 years.
Eisenstein
Was one among the main film scholar who supported this.
Hedda Hopper speaking. I'm talking from the bedroom of Norma Desmond. Don't bother with a rewrite, man. Take this direct. Ready? As day breaks over the murder house.
Don't you love Artie?
Of course I love him. I always will. I'm just not in love with him anymore.
What happened?
You did?
1930s gave way to synchronization and re-recording. It freed sound in film from the idea that everything on the screen must be heard through a soundtrack.
Hello.
Hello.
Would you like to dance with me? Some other time.
You should be a little more careful about speaking with strangers.
Well, why?
In 1950s, multi-channel soundtracks heightened the realism.
As with most of the technological innovations in cinema, sound was experimented with from the beginning. The film industry heavily prompted the improvement of sound recording, mixing and reproduction.
These developments include Dolby, noise reduction process, and 4 and 6 track theater sounds.
We've captured the essence of the Force.
You know, the Jedi will come for this.
Let them try.
In this episode, we discussed the evolution of sound in cinema. And in the next episode, we will talk about the different components of sound. Till then, goodbye.
Goodbye.